Although Atlanta is known as the Black Mecca, we're over 50% Black. There are not a lot of places that a Black person can walk in and say that it's owned and controlled by people that look like them.
Jason Maiden, who we interviewed, talks about knowing the difference between a big L and a little L.
It really starts from 1952. That's when my father started H.J. Russell Plastering Company. Our purpose of the Russell Center basically is to grow Black business.
And honor one of the greatest entrepreneurs this city has ever produced. There's a soul and a spirit when you walk into 504 Fair Street. I'm a firm believer you don't build anything for people without those people. We'll soon be 78,000 square feet in the heart of the city, and it is 100% owned by Black people, built by Black people, run by Black people, for Black people, in the community, by the community, with no debt. Organizations often falter when it's about a person or a single individual and their glory or their story or getting the credit.
What's the tactical Jay Bailey way of holding on and cultivating relationships?
Some of the best advice I ever got was from...
So Jay Bailey,
Yes.
CEO of Rice in Atlanta.
Yes.
Welcome to the So Ambitious podcast.
So happy to be here.
I adore the work that you do from afar,
thank you.
and then being able to meet you in person in Atlanta
Yeah.
at the center. But there's a history, there's a journey leading up to you in that position. Can you share that with us a little bit?
Entrepreneurship has always been a part of my life. I'm the kid that started his first business at 12. I bought my first house when I was 19. I made my first $1 million by the time I was 23. Mm-hmm. I didn't have good role models, good ambitions. So I went from living in a 10,000 square foot home at 26 to literally living in a 9x9 storage unit at 28. But it was there that I understood this concept of success and significance. By the world standards, I had been really successful. Cars, clothes, houses, all that kind of stuff. But I had zero significance. I had done nothing to put a dent in this world. When I started choosing significance, everything started to change. Within 3 years, I was helping to build a $50 million nonprofit in 10 countries. I was able to retire at the age of 39 and make my wife a promise that I'd never get another job, because I knew that I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, create jobs, create opportunity. But then I had to break that promise. Because there are very few times in life where you get to be a part of something you know will outlast you. Yeah. There are even rare moments where you get to be a part of something that could potentially change the course of history. And then there are the rarest moments where you could potentially be the best in the world at something. And when I saw this opportunity with the H.J. Russell Center, I knew that even just from zero, with just a gutted out building, no money, no staff, the vision of creating the world's largest center to serve Black entrepreneurs was just too big to say no to.
Yeah. We got to back up.
Oh,
you just said a lot of really
yeah.
amazing stuff. Bought your first house at 19.
Yeah.
Made your first $1 million in your early 20s. What were you doing? How did you get there?
Real estate. So, I'm a firm believer that loss creates leaders, and most incredible developments are born out of pain. Yeah. I bought that house because unfortunately I lost my mother my sophomore year of college. And so for the kid that was now 19 years old, for the first time in my life, I really didn't have a home that I wanted to go home to for Christmas. So what's a young, entrepreneurial, probably depressed kid do? I buy a house. I just pledged my esteemed fraternity. And I rented 3 bedrooms. I bought a 4-bedroom house, rented the 3 bedrooms out to my frat brothers. And that paid the mortgage. And so this was always this love of transaction in the deal that translated into a real estate business shortly thereafter college, because I went the corporate route. Everybody says, go to school, go get a great job. So I did the corporate thing, moved to Richmond, Virginia for a couple of years. But some pain and losses brought me back to Georgia. And I knew that I wanted to chart my own course.
Yeah. You said that early on you didn't have role models.
Yeah.
Right? I have this conversation with my dad all the time. He grew up in Georgia. Both my grandparents were alcoholics. He always says he left home at 14 and says he didn't have role models, right? Yeah. But oftentimes you may not have role models, but you may have a list of, well, I know these are all the things I don't want to do or don't want to be. Was that your story within that? If you say you didn't have role models, where did the inspiration come from?
I think that the shout out to my real home is Decatur, Decatur, Georgia, the Deck. So if anybody's listening, I'm from the Deck. the language of my community and my circle, I remember my junior year, I didn't think that Black people could make more than $50,000 a year. That being a supervisor was like the highest level of success in a community. So when you start seeing a lot of bad habits passed down out of love, it's literally where, you're shaped. I remember meeting this guy that was at UGA, and he was coming for a graduate degree, and he told me he was there for his MBA. Mm-hmm. I remember I was a sophomore, and I was like, well, what's that? And he told me what an MBA was. So literally when you start talking about access, opportunity, exposure, I think the only difference between the north side of the tracks and the south side of the tracks are those three words, mm-hmm. access, opportunity, and exposure. And you've got tremendously talented individuals that don't have those three. Right. So in many ways, it stifles their ability to dream or their vision of what's possible. Mm-hmm. I was blessed to be able to then actually take a college experience and build on the experiences of other people that I would encounter and kind of patchwork my way to looking at a successful trajectory, although I had never really understood what that looked like, mm-hmm. and certainly had to see around the corner because that was not laid out for me. Yeah.
Access, opportunity, exposure. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there's one that needs to happen at a higher level than the other, or all three need to happen at the same level to be successful?
It's my holy trinity. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have the three of those, I think everything starts to equalize. Mm-hmm. You start to actually believe that equity is possible if all those three are present. When you talk, I tell people all the time, you want to talk about innovation? Mm-hmm. Find me somebody more innovative on the planet than a single mother with two kids making $17,000 a year. The way she thinks, the way she problem solves, her grit, her determination, her ability to smile at Christmas when there are no gifts under the tree, no food in the pantry, but she still makes it happen for her kids. How does she do that? There's just so much. I think we lose GDP every year because those brilliant ideas that reside on the south side of the tracks mm-hmm. of every city in America never reach the marketplaces they don't believe they belong. Yeah. And I think that's an equation of access, opportunity, and exposure. Mm.
So you sound like you broke a promise to your wife. That could have been easy.
Yeah, no doubt.
Retired, broke the promise, but the promise has led to a lot. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about like your journey to Rice.
We're a bit of a nonprofit unicorn story. Mm-hmm. 4 years ago, we had zero budget, a very large gutted out building that had been vacant for several years. And just this hopes of creating a space. Mm-hmm. But our approach to it, we wanted to be a bit disruptive to the incubator accelerator model because traditionally and statistically, it just had not worked at scale for Black people. Yeah. And we knew that we had to do things differently because most programs only focused on being informative. Mm-hmm. Our goal was to be transformative. Yeah. And how could we could not ignore the loneliness, the depression, the isolation, the anxiety that goes with our entrepreneurial journey. We had to, if we were going to focus on Black entrepreneurs, we had to undergird self-esteem, self-confidence, and belief, and take as much importance to wellness as we did understanding a P&L or a balance sheet. Right. And make it on the continuum of engagement for the life cycle of a business, focus on community, culture, and covenant, mm-hmm. wrapping that around a world-class curriculum, world-class access, world-class faculty, world-class partners. So we really started to create this incredible ecosystem, this circular economy with no waste. Like even anytime you visit the Russell Center, from the water we drink, hell, the watch I'm wearing, the hoodie that I'm wearing, where I bought the hat, our plant peddler, construction, architecture, we spend more with Black businesses than most Fortune 1000 companies. Mm. And so there's a fierce intentionality that we take in walking the talk and creating this safe space for Black entrepreneurs to fail and fly. One of our greatest challenges is that we were about Black entrepreneurs before George Floyd. Mm. And so when it was unpopular, and I had to take all the arrows and have all the fights and have the screaming matches about nothing else made sense in Atlanta, Georgia, scientifically, economically, demographically, than to have a space that supercharged the majority of our population that was only contributing to 8% of the growth in our economic mm-hmm. growth in our city. It's the only thing that made sense. And so away we went to create this space of deep belonging where now people could see value in their own reflection. We knew that in our community that we were good enough. And so we've continued to build, and within just 4 years, and 2 of those being during a global pandemic, we've gone from 0 now to 0 to 40 employees. We support 360 entrepreneurs full time. We touch about 10,000 annually. We had 80,000 people walk through our building last year. Wow. And our entrepreneurs contribute over 1,500 jobs to our communities. I think the stat was that our entrepreneurs, our stakeholders, and we're very intentional about that name, our stakeholders, generated over $450 million of new economic value for the city of Atlanta in just the last 3 years. And we're just getting started.
Why do you call your entrepreneurs stakeholders?
We wanted an elevated experience. We didn't want to just call it cohorts or members. We wanted folks to really feel like they had a stake in a place. Although Atlanta is known as the Black Mecca, we're over 50% Black. We have 50 years of Black mayors. There are not a lot of places that a Black person can walk in and say that it's owned and controlled by people that look like them. The part that I love most will soon be 78,000 square feet in the heart of the city. And it is 100% owned by Black people, built by Black people, run by Black people, for Black people, in the community, by the community, with no debt. And so to be able to have a space that is uniquely ours, where you don't have to whisper Black, where you don't have to accommodate or put on mask or put on any armor. You can show up as your true, authentic self. And I think that if you're Black, brown, or a woman, the world suffers because you're never able to show up as your authentic self, the real you. And that gets so heavy. And how can we create a space where it didn't have to be that heavy? And this space is as much yours as it is mine. So we're going to call you a stakeholder.
We can't move forward without actually talking about Herman J. Russell and the Russell family. Because I grew up seeing the family in Black enterprise, daughter of a construction and development owner. So that was like the family that people in that space looked up to, right? Talk to us a little bit about like that family and just how transformational they have been, not only for Atlanta, but really just like, not even just the United States, across the globe, right?
Herman
For
Russell,
what that family represents.
I put him up against most. He may be one of the most prolific entrepreneurs we've ever produced. To think about what he did when he did it, also with a severe speech impediment. For everybody listening, it's hard to talk about our work without talking about the man. That's where the Russell in Russell Center comes from. Herman Russell also started his first business at 12. This brother was producing and building income producing properties at the age of 16. He had a pool inside his house with a tennis court by the time he was 30 years old, where a young Dr. King and all of his lieutenants used to go over and try to figure out how to change the world. Now, we know names like Ambassador Andrew Young and Martin Luther King, but who are the people that underwrote the civil rights movement? And right at the top of that list is Herman J. Russell Sr. Integrated the Chamber of Commerce at the city and the state level. He was the first minority certified company in the state of Georgia, built half of the skyline in the city of Atlanta.
The airport.
Just a powerful force. If you come to Atlanta and put in 504 Fair Street, our address, Fair Street becomes Student Movement Boulevard. Why? Because although Atlanta was the cradle of the civil rights movement, we didn't have a lot of unrest. The one big dust up we had was the student movement, where 117 students got locked up. They made one phone call and one man bailed them all out, Herman Russell. And to give context of why I had to break that promise to my wife, think of a Black man 78 years ago, now closer to 80, having the audacity to build a headquarter building. And this is the Jim Crow segregated racist South. There were still documented lynchings of Black men for simply thinking too much of themselves. This brother had the audacity to build a headquarter building that is a full city block wide and 50,000 square feet 78 years ago. He built it intentionally on top of a hill. Why? Because this ain't ancient history. My father, I went to the University of Georgia. My dad, not my granddad, my dad could not go there by law. Directly across the street from his headquarters was Morehouse, Clark, Spelman, Morris Brown, and ITC, where Black students would come from all over the world to go to the best schools available for Black people. He knew that they needed to see the physical manifestation of what was possible for people that looked like them, so they could dream, so they could aspire. So he built this gleaming headquarters on a hill overlooking those campuses. Powerful, powerful legacy. And it goes on from there. But to be able to carry forward that legacy to help create the next Herman Russell, that's why I had to break the promise.
They were in construction, they were in concessions, they were in a lot of things.
Concessions, airports, construction. He was a beer distributor. He was the first Black person to ever be on the ownership table of a professional sports team. Built condos, hotels, apartment complexes, beer distributor, like insane amount of depth as an entrepreneur. And he saw around every corner. Absolutely brilliant savant of a businessman.
I saw his daughter speak a few years ago at a conference in Martha's Vineyard, and she talked about like every holiday there was like an intention, right? Like there was family planning, there was legacy planning, there was succession planning. Like every person born into the family knew what their role was going to be, or like how they were going to essentially like contribute to the global conglomerate that they had built, right? And the impact of it. What have you learned on a personal level about legacy building based off of this family and what you've been doing at Rice?
Family matters, relationships matter, community matters, people matter. And I think in the equation, sometimes in our pursuit of success, we forget the people. We start to think about positions and possessions and forget people. And I think more than anything else, shout out to Danita, Jerome, and Michael, the three siblings that own the companies a third. They make it a point to meet as a family, to speak as a family, to love on each other as a family, to discuss business as a family, but to talk about family and love as a family. And I think that it's the very same thing that we want to bring some of that energy to the center, that for those of us that don't have that kind of nuclear support, the friends and family round without the cash involved. How can we create a little bit of that in the center where you always have a phone call that you can make. You always have a shoulder to cry on. You always have somebody preaching positivity into your life or your idea. And we want to take that same community culture and covenant and build it into the DNA of how we grow as an organization.
Nice. You're building a family legacy, building upon a family legacy, in building upon making sure that there's support for the next generation. At Black Ambition, we're also building upon essentially a family legacy, right? Does that ever get heavy for you? Like the responsibility of getting it right, doing it right, the weight of it. Can you talk to a little bit about that?
My team knows it well, and I say it often. And I'd say it to you, and I'd say it to anybody listening, that for everything that was done and sacrificed for us to be here right now, we don't have the right to fail. And so for this to be this level of a project in Atlanta, Georgia, the weight is, yes, I have a 2-year-old daughter. And when she's 22, will this be a resource that she can tap into if she has an idea, a dream, or an ambition? And the heartache and the heartburn, or the thing that keeps me up most, is sustainability. That right now we have this kind of moment in time where the world is actually listening to the pain of Black folks. We know that we took this challenge before it was a cool thing to do. The greater challenge now, though, is institution building. This not dependent on me or one individual, but that literally can plant seeds that will grow trees whose shade we may never sit under. How can we look at something that will impact 7 generations yet unborn? And how can we have the audacity, the bold audacity, to think that we have the capacity to build something that will stand the test of time? That kind of internal courage, that kind of vision, that dealing with the fear of it failing can sometimes be quite a bit, but you got to press through that.
How do you continue to build something, one, much bigger than yourself, and then two, just kind of like what you said, like you may not be able to sit under the shade of that in your lifetime. But you got to get up every single day. Like Martin Luther King didn't see the equality that he hoped for, or even like the beginning steps of that he hoped for in his lifetime, but he got up every day. Like, how do you get up every day knowing that you may not see the full manifestation of everything that you're building right now?
Yeah, but I make it not about me. And I think organizations often falter when it's about a person or a single individual and their glory or their story or getting the credit. I don't know who the president of Stanford is, but I know it's a pretty good institution. Yeah. I do know who the president of Harvard is, or Howard, any of the others, but the institution carries the weight. Right. My goal is to look at building something that has no bearing on who's at the head of it, the mechanisms and the machine that we've created, this assembly line for economic mobility and economic empowerment for Black people is so strong that whoever is at the head of that is running an institution that is built to do the long run. And so, no, it's always about, one, the people that we serve. And the beauty of what we do is we see the faces every day. So anytime I walk in the building, it's somebody pitching me a new idea that they're excited about, talking a big win that they had. I just got tackled in my hallway yesterday as I was flying down here because one of my stakeholders is a finalist for the Black Ambition Prize. And she's like, I heard you're going to Miami.
You came over here to curry some favor. What's going on?
I came to put some good juju out there for some good vibes for her. But that's what I mean. Yeah. Like, I was dog tired, but to hear these kind of stories, to know where we can help and to be able to touch and feel the impact on a daily basis, it's hard not to jump out of bed excited about what part of the puzzle or what piece of the puzzle can we put in place today.
Nice. So 80,000 people walked through the doors last year.
Yes.
10,000 entrepreneurs in a number of capacities that you're supporting annually. And then like 300 plus like direct support.
Full time.
Tell us some of the stories around some of those numbers, like some of those entrepreneurs, where they started, where they are now, as a result of their involvement with Rice.
Are you building a high-growth business in tech, healthcare, AI, media entertainment, or consumer goods and services? If so, we'd like to help you scale. Apply for a chance to win capital, coaching, and access to an amazing community of diverse innovators. Applications for the 4th annual Black Ambition Prize competition are now open. Don't miss your chance to win $1 million. Apply today at blackambitionprize.com.
It's a beautiful thing. Like, one of the greatest stories that holds the greatest weight with me, I got a call at 2 a.m. from an entrepreneur, established entrepreneur, but overnight they lost 85% of their business because of COVID-19. The airports had shut down, the airlines had shut down, and that was kind of the bread and butter of their business. Again, access, opportunity, exposure. Because we had a relationship with a major Fortune 50, we got on the phone with them. We talked about their readiness, and we could stand behind their readiness to do the work. Within 6 months, this emerging company closed a deal with a Fortune 50 organization that added over $28 million to their bottom line. For an organization their size, it usually takes about 6 to 8 years to develop that kind of relationship with the Fortune 50 to close that kind of contract. We did it in 6 months. Or one of the last times I was in Florida, our youngest CEO is 11-year-old Zoe Oli with beautiful curly me, and she's a beast, and she is not just a lemonade stand. I think Zoe did over $1.5 million last year. But we have a partnership with Disney, and we were able to bring 60 of our entrepreneurs down to meet the executives at Disney to talk about what it meant to do business with Disney, how to delight the customer and show customer service like Disney does, or how to imagineer how you actually reach your customer. And to have an 11-year-old come down to Disney for her first time, not to just put on ears and go to the amusement park, but to go as a CEO, talking to other C-suite leaders and showcasing her brand around how I can think about how I show up in the marketplace and getting some of the best advice available on the planet is the kind of thing that charges me, that we have about 120 companies that have signed on to fund our work and support our work. And each of them comes with more than just a check. And if I'm a fintech company, we have a number of fintech companies that are there to help. If I'm a logistics company, and even within the building, I've always believed that it's fallacy to say that one organization can do all things. We have 14 other organizations that have offices in the building that all have a mission in some way, shape, or form to support Black entrepreneurs. So in the truest sense of building an ecosystem and tearing down silos, we're not in it for ourselves. And I think the ability to now, you may come through the center and Jamie Dimon is walking through the hallway, or Tashunda Duckett was just there two weeks ago, or Renee Jones, the president and CEO of M&T Bank. Like this notion that I belong, but some of the best of the world is here too. So what does that make me feel about myself? Back to that undergirding self-esteem, self-confidence, and belief. That's the part that I'm most proud of, that it's not just about the curriculum, it's the culture that we're developing.
I love that. So talk to me a little bit more about the partners, right?
Yeah.
You said 178 partners. That's no small feat.
No.
At all, but they've done some incredible things. And then you said not just writing the check, but then they also show up in really big ways. Was that by design? Is that like the ethos of like Jay Bailey? Right? Like, talk to us a little bit about those partners and how they show up in a big way, or how you guys demand that they show up in a big way.
And it's a demand. I mean, there's some folklore about a very, very prominent company that I told to go to hell because they were seeing empowerment through a charity lens, where they just wanted to kind of give a few pennies. They were going to make a big announcement, national announcement, because they were committing $5,000 to solve the problem of the economic and the diversity wealth gap. And here is this. And I told them, quite frankly, keep your money. It's exactly that. It is, I think, far too often that the philanthropy, especially in the not-for-profit world, philanthropy is oftentimes paternalistic. Yeah. Especially when you're talking about Black and brown populations. And to go into this as not charity, and my goal is to, if we start at the foundation side of the conversation, to end on the P&L balance sheet side of the conversation by the end, because my goal is to make sure that you see the we in all of this. That this is not just about a donation. This is good business for you. And if we can understand how we have this mutually exclusive, kind of mutually beneficial business case that we've made for the work that we do, it's a much easier conversation for our partners to see value in it. So, our partners from top to bottom, from their senior executives to their associates getting engaged, to them looking at opportunities where they can grow their pie, has worked really well for us. And we've done a very good job of actually having, lions and tigers, sheep and lions all in the same sandbox. So we have about 9 different, major Fortune 100 banks in the building. If it's Walmart and Target in the building, and they never play nice together. And so but they see the higher purpose of the greater goal and the greater problem we're trying to solve. And we've done a pretty good job of creating swim lanes for each of them that are uniquely positioned for their bottom line, for the things that are most important to them. And we have very deep conversations with each of our partners about what a win looks like. And so in doing that, we've created an amazing network of companies where we're able to draw down on support in a lot of different directions. And it's powerful.
How did you learn to navigate all of those relationships? Because that's, if you don't grow up in it at some point, whether it's corporate experience, getting it wrong to getting it right, that you learn how to navigate relationships, period. But then when you have so many high level relationships that are all maybe wanting different things from you as a leader, like, how are you navigating that?
It's a learning process. I think that it's born out of a fearlessness, though. That, remember, I'm the kid, as I told the story, that I was homeless. I have a fearlessness, and I have a deep love for Black people in our community. I want to see our communities thrive and prosper. That leads me to have this almost ferociousness in how I go about it. And I had no at the door. So the worst you can tell me is no. I helped grow an organization to scale in size. I've seen it happen before. And being in Atlanta's kind of like a small town wrapped around tall buildings, where you can still touch the mayor if you need to. You can still see a CEO of a Fortune 50 or a Fortune 10 company.
Miami's like that, yeah.
You know what I mean, though? You can still touch and feel those spaces. And we may take that for granted. In the same way that we may take for granted that we used to have, any number of civil rights leaders just walking the streets. But then you've got corporate superheroes that are on the cover of Forbes and Inc. magazine and everything else just walking the streets. And Atlanta being the kind of cool place where, I can go from our mayor, Andre Dickens, to Andre 3000, to civil rights icon, Ambassador Andrew Young in one grocery store. It's that kind of like Southern charm, that kind of Southern relationship, that slowed down where I can look you in the eye, and you can be nice to people for no economic reason. Makes relationship building very easy in the South. Yeah. But also it's a learned practice. This is not where every time I swung the bat, I hit a home run. There are a lot of swings that nobody hears about where I struck out terribly. And you learn from that. And so trust that it's over 15 years of trial and error, of getting a lot of it wrong, but then also saying that it's for a greater purpose that I'm doing it. It's not about me. Yeah. Every time I go to bat, it's not about me getting a home run or actually, ratcheting up my stats. Every time I win at the plate, there are 100 people behind me that are going to benefit from me swinging at that ball. And when I swing at it, giving it every single thing that I got.
Well, tell me what's Jay Bailey's tactical way of cultivating relationships, right? And so I'll give you an example. So Spectacular, the artist, the musician, the entrepreneur, I remember him sharing his process. When he meets someone, he has a very specific way in which he saves their contact information in his phone, right? So he puts not just their name, their phone number, their email, but exactly where they met. He asks them for their birthday and something very unique about them. And then what he does throughout the rest of the year is, if there's an article that resonated with something that they said was interesting, he may email the article to them, sometimes even see it in the newspaper and physically mail it. On Father's Day, you're getting a text.
Yep.
I remember getting a text from him on Mother's Day. I'm like, how you know Mother? And so, because he was genuinely interested.
Yep.
But his process was not this long drawn out process, but being intentional when he first meets the person.
Yep.
And that way he can stay engaged. And his thing was well, by the time I call them and I need something, they don't ever feel like he only calls me because I need something, because he intentionally keeps in contact, small touch points. So what's the tactical Jay Bailey way of holding on and cultivating relationships? Some
of the best advice I ever got was from Ambassador Andrew Young. And he told me, son, you better make your friends before you need them. And that's part of my process. I am in every meeting. It's not about what I can get. It's always about what I can give. Yeah. And so, I know a lot of my peers kind of go into meetings and want to ask them for this much. We're going to do this. This is the plan. No, I'd rather meet you as the individual and care enough and be authentic and present in that moment. Yeah. I'll learn more without a proposal or a number or a thing that I'm trying to ask for if I just sit down with Felicia and understand who she is, what makes her tick, what she's passionate about, what she cares deeply about. And a lot of times, I've seen myself go in with a number in my mind, and I've sold myself incredibly short, because literally, if you're able to sell the big enough vision, you don't know what will resonate. And most folks do not take the time to see a person. They take them at their positions and their possessions, and they attack it from that perspective. I've made it a habit not even to read bios before I go into meetings. Why? Because then I'm coming in with this preconceived notion of who you are, who you might be, and I can't have an authentic conversation with you. Now, at that point, though, yes, it is about follow-up. It is about authentic dialogue. It is about actually caring about the person. And that's not technique. That's kind of learned behavior over time with a genuine care of people, to come across as authentic, to know that this is not about what I can get from you, but let's build a true relationship. And then the rest will take care of itself. And to his point, follow-up is key. When you read an article where somebody's had a big win, be the person that texts okay, I see you.
Yeah.
And people are marveled. I've got this kind of thing that I do around hitting speakerphones and calling people right in the moment. But it's their daughter, it's their cat, it's their favorite restaurant, what they like to do in their pastime, or their free time. And I think I learned a long time ago, at the heart of every big company was once a small company, was once a startup, was once somebody's idea. And every CEO or every executive vice president, at the end of the day, they just want to get home safe to their family. And if you're not able to tap into that person at the end of the day, who, if you made a pie graph of what's most important to their life, that job or that position they have is probably the smallest slice.
Right.
If you don't know anything else about that person outside of that job title, then you don't have a relationship. And I really look at that as the way that how you can build authenticity It's not about just the ask, it's about the person.
Nice. I love that. I'm a big believer on like slow relationship
Absolutely.
cultivating.
Absolutely. And if I'm not going in to close you that day. Mm-hmm. I've never been a hard close guy. Go in, I need $1 million. Can you give it to me today? Wrong. I'll get $1 million once. I want the relationship that makes sure that every time you think about your budget, you're thinking about where does Jay fit in that budget?
Yeah.
And so how do you do that? Not with a number in mind, but developing that relationship that is authentic, but also understanding I have a deep appreciation for your goals and your success. And how can we align my goals and my success with your goals and your success? And then we create a really productive relationship that's symbiotic,
right?
That we both win. And actually all three of us win because the community wins at the end of it as well.
Absolutely. Jay, what does success look like to you at the end of the day?
Wow. I think I said it when I said it earlier. One of my personal mottos is the plant seeds that will grow trees whose shade you may never sit under. I'm big on legacy. A friend of mine, Greg Clay, give you a shout out if you're listening, brother. When my daughter when he knew that we were pregnant, we were out somewhere and he said, bro, congratulations. I need you to be a really dope great-great-great-grandfather. I said, bro, what are you talking about? Like, can I be a great dad first? He was like, bro, everybody knows that you're going to be a great dad. You might be the best dad that ever lived. But what can you do with the talents that you have, the opportunities that you have right now? There's 7 generations yet unborn. Your great-great-great-great-grandchildren, the life that you live today has still relevance then to them. And they talk to people about my great-great-great-great-grandfather Jay.
Yeah.
Success looks like that to me. This whole notion of holding my baby girl and understanding what legacy means for the first time in real time. And how with everything that I've been afforded, all the gifts that I've been given, all the opportunities that I've been given, how can the impact and the ripple effect of what I'm able to make decisions about today impact those that I'll never meet?
What's the last thing you failed at?
Shit. In the last 30 minutes? I mean, I think there's so many things. I think that you know, we're doing a retool and a reimagination. We've grown really fast as an organization. And we found areas where all of these amazing resources that we were galvanizing at the speed of light weren't getting down to our entrepreneurs. And so I had to make the hard decision in Q4 of saying, hey, team, time out, put the brakes on. We have the opportunity to do incredible work, and we're doing good work. We got to get to the point of incredible. And I had to take the L around like, hey, put the brakes on, stop everything. We're not doing our best work right now. And let us take the time to actually get that work done. But that's just one example. But the other piece is I'm not afraid of failure. Like, we will push this thing till it fails and then reimagine. And I think that fearlessness that I talked about earlier contributes to this absolute fearlessness and running to the storm. But at the end, that's the heart of the entrepreneur as well, though.
Right.
You cannot be afraid of failure. Yeah. And I think we need to normalize failure more. So I'm glad you asked the question, because it cannot be this thing where all I do is win. It's it may look like that on LinkedIn sometimes, but no, there's a lot of hard fought wins that are built on some really hard learned lessons from losses.
Yeah. Jason Maiden, who we interviewed for our Decode the Uncoded series, talks about knowing the difference between a big L and a little L. And I was like, that's just so good.
No doubt, right? Yeah.
Because he's like, you're going to have the L's, but there's a difference between when it's a big L and a little L, and that puts so many things in perspective. And so my last question for you, Jay, like, you are a prolific like storyteller, communicator, speaker, advocate for like just people being dope and ambitious and audacious, right? Where did that gift come from?
Oh man, that's almost tearful. It's a combination of things. My mom was a go-getter. And to lose her early, I think I caught a bit of that spirit she passed down. But it also comes from, I know what it feels like to literally be hungry. I know what it feels like to literally not know, where I'm going to sleep. Yeah. I honestly know what it feels like to lose everything. And so not only was it the economic losses I took, but I started with my mother in 96 when I lost her. But there was this succession of losses, like from my mother, I buried all of my grandparents, a first cousin, a college sweetheart. So that spun me into a depression in a community that doesn't necessarily talk about depression. And so when you start to really know how fragile life is, when there are faces that you love that you can't see anymore on earth, one or two things can happen. But in my case, I started to see so much value in your face. Mm-hmm. To have a sister in Miami doing it at this level, and to just take extreme, very authentic pride in the power of people, because I understand how great a gift life is. And I think in that understanding of how great a gift life is, it came from a tremendous amount of losses. I think those who will inherit the earth are those that can effectively manage pain. And those that we often take for granted walking upright, like walking straight ahead, look straight ahead. But I'd offer, if you've never been flat on your back, you may have never seen the sun.
Right.
When you're just on your back and the only thing that you can do is look up, is where your mettle is really tested. And I think that in so many different ways, and for a different podcast, we can go through those pain points and those loss points that really takes a kid who grew up in an environment where maybe statistically I shouldn't even be here. Yeah. So what do I have to frown about? Like, where does this immense joy come from? It comes from, I know what the alternative looks like. And I choose joy. Yeah. And it's a very intentional decision. And it's a very deliberate decision. And I see the beauty in other people, because oftentimes in our community, we get so much negative energy, so much negative talk. You can't do it. And if you think about how most of us have the same story. When you walk in the store, don't ask for nothing. You ain't getting nothing. Mm-hmm. We can't afford it. Put that back. Don't say nothing. Yeah. And it stays with us.
God, that's what my dad says to my kids.
But it's what I mean. Yeah. And we've all had that similar story. Uh-huh. So it builds in us this notion of we don't belong. Yeah. We don't deserve. And breaking through all of that is going to take a very intentional effort. And it's going to take a few of us that have enough belief that they can share a little bit with those of us that don't.
Mm-hmm. Oof. On that note, Jay, please let the audience know where they can follow you online and continue following your journey.
Find me, Jay Bailey, JayBailey, on LinkedIn. I kind of keep that as my personal Rolodex. I'm able to keep up with people. Go to our site, russellcenter.org. But if you're ever in Atlanta, Georgia, 504 Fair Street, we are building Atlanta's home for Black entrepreneurs. And anybody that's listening, you know that you're always welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jay.
Thank you so much.
Heineken is proud to support Black Ambition in helping to unlock opportunities for its participating founders.